Look okay here?
Yeah, terrific. Welcome to the Merrimack Democratic Forum. I'm your host, Kim Kojak. Today I will be speaking with Debora Pignatelli, candidate for Executive Council. Welcome to the program, Debora.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here with you, Kim.
Can you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I am a 40-year resident of Nashua, New Hampshire. I live here with my husband, Mike, and we have had two children who have grown up and gone to schools here in Nashua. I have a son, Adam, and our older son, and then I have a son, Ben. And Adam has moved back to New Hampshire, to Concord, New Hampshire recently, and has gotten married to Jessica, and I am a new grandmother.
Oh, congratulations. That's great news.
It is great news. It's something that I never expected to love, but I absolutely love it.
That's what I hear from all grandmothers.
And Ben is our environmentalist and is looking for a job in that field in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Oh, terrific.
And he moved back from California a few years ago.
Oh, great, great. So you said you've lived in Nashua for 40 years. Has it always been in the same place, or have you moved around a little bit?
We've had 3 different houses, but they're all within a mile of each other.
Oh, terrific. Good.
Yeah.
Nashua is a great
We
city.
have seen some big changes in Nashua over the years. Well, 101 was just a sleepy little, almost a dirt road when we first moved in, 101A. So that, as you know, there's been big changes there. Big
Very
changes
big.
in Merrimack, large changes in downtown Nashua. And we've enjoyed seeing those changes. And I think it's an improving city, as is Merrimack.
I think so too. I do. So let's talk about the Executive Council now. The importance of the Executive Council far surpasses the small amount of recognition its members get from the press and the public, and I think that's a big reason that not too many people know exactly the functions of the Executive Council. So can you tell us about the Executive Council?
Sure, and you're absolutely right. I've been campaigning for this job 4 times, and most of the time I spent explaining what the Executive Council was, how it was formed, why it was formed. And it was started when our Constitution was written. We have a distrust of government here in New Hampshire.
We do.
It goes back to when we were ruled by England, and when King Charles separated the territory of Massachusetts from New Hampshire, and our Constitution was written, we wanted to have a check on our leader, on the governor. So the Executive Council was formed. It's a 5-member group. Each of us has a territorial district of 250 to 260,000 people, and we're elected every 2 years, as is the Senate and the House and the governor and our U.S. representative. And there are 3 main duties to the Executive Council and a lot of minor ones. So the main duties are we approve or deny the governor's nominees to be judges in the state, approve or deny the governor's nominees to head up our important agencies like the Attorney General's Office, the Health and Human Services Department, Environmental Department, Insurance Department, and many, many other agencies. And the third major duty, and this is the most time consuming, is that we approve or deny any contracts, any money that the state spends over $10,000.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes, and that is where the majority of our time is spent, in reviewing these contracts, making sure that they are good deals for the taxpayer. And in my particular case, I was very interested in making the number of no-bid contracts fewer rather than more. When I came into the office in 2004, the rule was, and it was accepted by everyone, that agencies could have a particular vendor that they wanted to employ to do something, and they would just pick a vendor that they liked. And that didn't make a lot of business sense to me.
No, it certainly doesn't.
So I did everything I could to try to make sure that bids that could go out for bid to different vendors would. And even if the vendor that the agency wanted eventually got the bid, it sends a message to that agency, that vendor, that you've got to sharpen your pencil because you're in competition with other people who want this business as well. And it also encouraged some of the vendors in my district, some of the businesses in my district, to be able to bid on some of these upcoming contracts. So I saw it as something very important.
Oh, absolutely. And you also have state boards and commissions as well that you oversee. Is that right?
Well, we approve the members to be on the
Okay.
state boards and commissions. So a state board or commission, an example might be the university system or some other agency that might have board members. A commission on the status of women, which is no longer there, but it used to be. And there also was a commission on the status of men, which no longer is there either.
No.
But there are a lot of boards and commissions, and I would try to arrange for people in my district who wanted to contribute that way to obtain a position on a board or commission that they felt they wanted to learn more about, or they felt they had something to contribute to that particular topic.
Terrific. And you also mentioned state contracts. So that's another thing that the Executive Council works on. And so there's a big contract for our road system here in New Hampshire as well.
Yes. You know, any contract that has more than $10,000 in it comes before the council. So that could include, like you say, roads or services for children, any number of things in those contracts.
Terrific.
We also, and hardly anybody knows this, we also have pardon hearings if somebody would like to have a pardon for something that they've been convicted of, and they need to start with the Executive Council and request a pardon hearing. We also have a lot to do with the 10-year highway plan. We every 2 years the council goes out and holds public hearings throughout the communities to find out what our residents think, which roads the residents think need improvement. So when I was there, I would hold 5 or 6 meetings. I think I even held one in Merrimack once or twice so that the people in Merrimack could let me know what roads they thought needed to be improved.
And I'm sure there were some.
And there were some, as there were other things in Merrimack that people wanted me as their counselor to work on, such as toll relief.
Oh yes, you provided a lot of help with the residents of Merrimack for the toll relief. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I certainly tried. The first year I was elected to the Executive Council, I looked at providing Merrimack some toll relief as my part-time job. So I spent probably 15 or 20 hours a week looking into various ways that I could right a wrong for Merrimack, because I do believe Merrimack is in a situation that no other community in the state has.
Oh, we are.
There are 3 exits and 6 toll booths. You can't really leave Merrimack or get into Merrimack without paying a toll.
That's right.
So I don't think this is right. I don't care how the toll booths were originally set up. Certainly Merrimack has had tolls long enough to have had them repaid. So I came up with probably 10 or 15 different scenarios where Merrimack could get a break, and I would meet with your Board of Selectmen. Are they called councilors now, or Board of Selectmen?
I believe
they're
the counselors.
Counselors. They used to be selectmen, I think, when I first started. So I would meet with them once every couple of months with my newest idea to find out how the counselors felt about my pursuing that, because I didn't want to do anything that the leaders in Merrimack didn't want me to do. But we agreed on several different areas that I could pursue, and I pursued each one to its final difficult conclusion. And at one time, I had 2 other counselors going along with me on some relief for Merrimack toll booths.
Oh,
and
good.
at the very last meeting, after I had made the proposal to give Merrimack some toll relief, the governor said, "Wait a minute, maybe we ought to rethink this." And I lost both other votes.
Oh.
So that was the closest I came.
Yeah, well, you came close, and the residents of Merrimack certainly appreciate that.
I hope so.
Debora, yes.
I hope so. I don't know whether they even know how much time I spent working on this issue. But I don't like injustice when I see it, and this seemed to me to be an injustice for one of my communities.
That's right. And you know, having served so long in the Executive Council, what are some of the other things that you're most proud of that you were able to accomplish or work on while there? Well,
besides this no-bid contract, which I tried to to deal with. And I do believe, because of my efforts, the state saved quite a bit of money. I think the Milford cabinet had talked about how much money I saved at one time. So I think that helped. But one of the things that I am proud of is that I started a process by which we have public hearings for agency heads, for nominees to head up our important agencies. And because of when I was in the state Senate in 1998, I introduced a bill with others to have public hearings mandated for judicial nominees. So we have always had, since 1998, public hearings on judicial nominees, but we never had public hearings on nominees to head up these important agencies. And so I started that process, and it was difficult at first. There were some objections by the other counselors.
Sure.
But I think it's a good process, and it has received accolades from the newspapers and from other people, and even from the nominees themselves. Before 1998, to become a judge, your most important criteria was your friendship with the governor. And to me, that wasn't right. I think the public had to have some involvement in it. So I was proud to sponsor that bill. And then I was really glad to start this process of having public hearings for agency heads. It not only is good for the press and the public to know who's nominated, but it sends a message to that nominee. You don't just work for the governor, even though he has nominated you. You really work for the people. And
Absolutely.
the 5 counselors represented the people.
Yep. And it provides a lot of transparency and involvement by the citizenry, which is always a good thing.
Absolutely. And another thing I did was I thought that it was really important for my constituents to know what I was doing on the council. So after every meeting, I would send out an email to probably about 700 or 800 people that I had email addresses for, and to all the different towns and the elected officials in each town, to know what I was voting on that was going to affect their town, why I voted a particular way. If they wanted to know something more about the stimulus money that we were spending, I would highlight that in red.
Right.
And I would always be available to answer phone calls and emails if people got in touch with me and wanted to talk to me about a particular vote, had a question, or even wanted to make a negative comment on why I voted a certain way.
And I'm sure they did.
And they did. And they did. And I was always glad to try to explain why I voted a certain way.
And I'm sure your constituents really appreciated that as well,
I hope
Debora.
so.
Oh, I'm sure they did. So your opponent, David Wheeler, could you tell us a little bit of how you're different?
Mm-hmm.
He is the current executive counselor for this district.
And he was the executive counselor before I ran in 2004.
Oh, he was. I didn't realize that.
And we ran against each other in 2006 as well. And this is our 3rd time running against each other. It would probably be fair to say that David Wheeler is to the right of the Tea Party group here. He is very ideologically to the right of almost any elected official in New Hampshire. And we differ on several large votes that were taken in this last 2 years. The biggest of which is his refusal to have even a study for rail feasibility for Nashua to Merrimack and to the airport and perhaps on to Concord. There was an item on the agenda that would allow us to accept money from the federal government to do a rail study. A study to see what the economic benefits would be to having rail come to New Hampshire, how the people who took the rail into Boston would feel about it, how many people were going to take the rail, and whether it was a possibility to do it. And I was very disappointed when I learned that David Wheeler was the deciding vote to not have us accept that money. Now, I've got to tell you, the mayor wanted the study. Our Board of Aldermen in Nashua wanted it. Our Chamber of Commerce in the greater Nashua area was very supportive of this. And rather than come to Nashua to meet with these groups and hear why we were in support of this, he did none of that. He voted no, and that was it. He knew best. We shouldn't have rail. After all, we've got the bus, and isn't that enough for anybody? But to me, that was the deciding factor in my decision to run again this year.
Oh, I'm
that
so
was
glad
one of
you
the
did.
votes. And I certainly would have voted differently. And as we see from our gubernatorial candidates, they both favor this. The Republican nominee and the Democratic nominee both favor this rail study, as do the state senators, both sides running in the Nashua area. So I think that was a major mistake, and if I had been there, we would be having this rail study now, and we would find out, yes, there are benefits and costs, and we could look at both of those and decide if we wanted to go forward. But doesn't it even make sense to study it before you vote now?
Yes, it absolutely makes sense, Deborah. And I am a proponent for rail. I think anytime you make it easier for people to get to work or to travel, I mean, that's a progressive thing. It moves a state forward if you have that.
I think so, and I think New Hampshire would really benefit. So I think I know how the study would turn out, but I don't know. And the last study that was done in 2003, and things, as you know, have changed significantly in southern New Hampshire since then. So I was in favor of doing this study. The Chamber of Commerce had raised $120,000 from its own members toward the match for this study. And I'm not sure what is happening to that money now, whether it came back or whether it is just lost to these members. So our Chamber of Commerce is very upset with Mr. Wheeler, who had to be shoehorned out of Milford, where he lives, to come over to Merrimack and try to explain his vote after the fact to our mayor and board of aldermen.
How about that?
Another issue that we disagree with is David Wheeler voted to fire the consumer advocate who works for our Public Utilities Commission because she was doing too good a job advocating for the residents. And I certainly would not have done that. She was doing a wonderful job and had been there for years. I knew her. I depended on her. She answered a lot of questions for me and my constituents. And she was too good an advocate for David Wheeler.
Well, that's too bad, too. Now, there has been a large redistricting in New Hampshire. Your district now includes towns that you have never campaigned in before. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, every 10 years, we have a census in this state. And because of that census, sometimes we need to, with population shifting, we need to redistrict to make sure that the populations remain equal in the different districts. We didn't need to do any redistricting in the Executive Council. We could have stayed with the old districts, and the population shifts were not there, so it did not need to be done. But for political reasons, it was done. And so I lost some towns that I had represented for 6 years and had formed lifelong relationships with some of the people. Keene is one of those communities. The cities of Keene and Nashua have been together on the Executive Council for over 100 years.
Oh my goodness.
So Keene is no longer in this district, and neither is Winchester or Hinsdale, two other districts, two other communities in Cheshire County. I used to go over there, pop in on the mayor. We used to discuss what Keene needed and what was expected of me. I used to come to the Board of Aldermen and attend all kinds of other city functions. And so I will miss those people terribly.
I'm sure.
But I now have Hudson and Litchfield, towns that I have never represented before, and I'm looking forward to representing them. And several communities to the north and west of Merrimack. One of the communities I had never heard of, the community of Windsor, New Hampshire. I knew there was a Windsor, Vermont and a Windsor, England, but I never knew there was a Windsor, New Hampshire, and there is. It's a very small community, but now it's mine in this district, and along with the communities of Hillsborough and Antrim and Deering and Francistown and Greenfield and several other communities that I've never had.
So this has been really interesting for you, this campaign
It
cycle.
has. They're all interesting. I really like to campaign. You know, I was telling someone the other day that I like to campaign just about as much as I like to serve when I get elected, because I really enjoy meeting people from different communities and hearing their stories. Everyone has a really interesting story to tell.
Oh, that's great. Great. I'm sure they do. And you haven't been serving in the last couple of years, so what have you been doing with your time?
Well, when I lost the election 2 years ago in this huge tsunami sweep out of Democrats, I'm a Democrat, but a moderate Democrat, and couldn't possibly have won the 3 times that I ran for executive council without a lot of Republicans supporting me as well. And I have that support now too.
Terrific.
But I have done 3 interesting things during this time. I've joined a board of directors of the New Hampshire Women's Initiative. Remember I said the New Hampshire Commission on the Status of Women no longer is there. Well, that group, along with the Women's Lobby and several other women's groups, decided to come together and form one board and do education on women's issues and issues for men as well, and work on education issues for children and everything having to do with letting people know about gender issues in New Hampshire. I've joined that group, the New Hampshire Women's Initiative. I've also, as I mentioned, Adam and Jessica have had a baby.
Yes.
And I babysit for Ethan 2 days a week so that Jessica can continue to work for the World Wildlife Fund, where she's worked for quite a while.
That's wonderful.
So it is great, and we spend our days on the floor doing all kinds of different things and learning. I used to be a kindergarten and nursery school teacher, so my emphasis is on teaching Ethan, you know, things that I think he ought to be able to learn at age 1 so far, and he learns some of those things, and I learn a lot.
Well, Debora, I've known you for a long time, and I don't think I knew that about you, that you were a kindergarten teacher.
Yes, I majored in elementary education and art when I was in college. And then a third thing that I've done, and this is a real stretch for me, is I've become a mentor for a woman inmate in our prison.
Oh, great.
And that has been a real learning experience for me.
Oh, that's terrific. So you have filled your time.
I have.
You certainly have.
And certainly if we had a more moderate counselor in there, I would have chosen not to run. But because of the votes of my opponent, I've decided that New Hampshire really does deserve a moderate, somebody who's open-minded, somebody who's willing to listen to all sides of an argument before making up his or her mind. And we don't have that now.
I agree. I agree. So in the last few moments of our program, would you like to address our viewers and just add anything to what we've already spoken about as to why they may consider voting for you?
Sure.
Great.
I'd like that opportunity.
Great.
Thank you.
You have it.
So, Merrimack viewers, this is a great station that you have. You can listen to all kinds of interesting programs. Kim runs one that I'm sure is going to be a great asset to Merrimack. But I hope that on November 6th you'll consider voting for me. I have enjoyed representing Merrimack for 6 years between 2004 and 2010 and would love to represent your town again. So I hope you give me your vote on November 6th. And thank you again. And thank you, Kim.
Oh, thank you, Debora, so much for being a part of our program today. I've learned a lot about the Executive Council.
You're very welcome.
And the duties. And I'm always so impressed with your long history of service to the state of New Hampshire and your involvement in the community. I think it's great. You're an intelligent, smart woman, and I think we need to have more of those. Certainly representing the people of New Hampshire. And to the viewers, thank you for tuning in today. It was a pleasure interviewing Debora. And again, thank you.